The future will belong to those who know how to stay tender, stay human. Somewhere beneath the noise, we're all longing for the same thing, to feel woven fully into life, to belong, to thrive, to feel alive. Hello and welcome to this final episode of this season. We are arriving now at the close of this cycle and we'll be back in the new year after a little rest and renewal. The best way to stay connected in the meantime is through our newsletter, where we'll share updates as things unfold. We have some beautiful episodes brewing for next year, as well as live events. During the break, you're warmly invited to join the rhythm sessions to explore beautiful leadership mentoring in the new year and to step into the radiant field. All of this is on our events calendar. This episode is a reminder for many of you. These will be things that you already know and live by, perhaps without even thinking. For others, they may be ways of being that have slipped out of your life or new practices you're just beginning to explore. Wherever you are, I hope something here lands with you. A spark of inspiration, a deeper presence, a sense of alignment. This is another solo episode entitled Belonging in the Age of Loneliness, 10 Ways to Remember Your Humanity. And together we explore a simple, tender question. How do we weave more beauty, purpose, and belonging into our days? Welcome to All That We Are, with me, your host, Amisha Tala Oak. All That We Are is where you find what you didn't know you needed, exploring what it means to be alive right now, discovering what happens when we refuse to live in boxes, and together creating a more beautiful future. Here we celebrate and navigate all that we are, all that we're becoming, and all that is possible. Let's take a deep breath together and come into a moment of presence as we open the doorway of this beautiful conversation. I want to speak about something that is quiet and fierce and ancient, and that is changing the way that we are in a way that is so urgent, whether we're aware of it or not. We are actually living through one of the greatest disconnection crises in human history. A moment where loneliness has become so widespread that Harvard now calls it an epidemic. A moment where we feel connected and yet so disconnected at the same time. Where 70% of adults, according to some studies, say that they feel alone on a regular basis. And where the absence of meaningful human connection is said to shorten our lives as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, which is ironic as most smoking is done socially. With all of this, what I want to speak to here with you is how this time that we're in right now, it's inviting us to really be very conscientious and very intentional about how we human and how we are with each other. And I know that often these patterns kind of creep up on us. And I've been reflecting quite a lot on the last 5 years, say, where we're moving into the energies of 2026 and 2027, how much things have changed in the way that we communicate and the way that we relate. So many of us send text messages instead of picking up the phone, and that's spanning across generations and across countries. It's become a normal way of communicating. I had an experience of being in India recently, and I was messaging with an auntie about visiting them, and they weren't going to be in town. But then I was trying to call just because I wanted to also catch up and especially if I wasn't going to see them. And this happened with both an auntie and a cousin that I wasn't going to be able to see. Neither of them were like available to have the conversation. Whereas I remember like back in the day, as they say, like you would always connect. And sometimes if you can't meet up, having that conversation is that reconnection, you know, when you're like, hey, I'm coming here. And if you can't meet in person, then at least you speak. And when I think about how much texting there is in just all aspects of life, actually talking to some friends, I don't know the stats on this, but email is pretty empty these days. And there's not a lot that goes on in my inbox that's not newsletters and bills. Everything's happening over on like WhatsApp, and there's all these groups and there's all these messages and there's all this pinging. And a friend of mine was saying that the pinging and those kind of messages can then make connection feel like admin rather than feel like connection. And I had this beautiful moment where a friend messaged me and said, you know, hey, like, how are you landing back? What's going on? And I just picked up the phone and called them. And it's so simple, but we both really enjoyed this moment of connection. And it wasn't like a perfectly rounded conversation. And then one of us was going somewhere, so we had to cut it short. But we had this 20 minutes of like chatting and laughing. It was so much nicer. It's really interesting when we look at these statistics and some of the research that there is this loneliness, and you can see why. As all of these technological changes happen, we no longer have to have all of the interactions that we used to have on a daily basis. And so, for example, another thing that I experienced in India this time was I was in a place called Kamakya, which is this ancient temple. It's the Yoni Shakti temple. And I needed to get a ride to go 10 minutes away where the local markets were to pick something up. In this particular area of Assam, not many people speak English. And normally that would be like a fun sort of game of connection and, you know, where are you from? And like all of that kind of thing as we try and like work out together how we're going to get to the market and where I need to go. And now I was like, oh, I need to get a car. And they were like, oh, just get an Uber. And I couldn't believe that Uber was existing in this small village. And of course, it took away the need to have that awkward, difficult conversation. And instead, I just put in the location. And then, you know, of course, there's something about that that's easier because we don't have to try and like work it out and go through the language barrier. But it also means that you get in the car and there's often like no conversation, and you're driving around with someone and there's no conversation. I had another experience in Bombay where I was going to meet an uncle, actually one of my parents' like best friends from their lifetime together. And for some reason, the Uber had sent me to the wrong location. There was something wrong in Google Maps. And so I went somewhere wrong and I ended up somewhere and I didn't know where I was. And then my uncle was like, I don't know where you are. And I could have just shared with him my location on one of the apps, but he said, find someone for me to talk to. And I asked this lady and I said, oh, would you speak to my uncle for me and tell him where we are? It was really beautiful because actually what happened was she had this whole chat with him, and then she got us a rickshaw and we both got in it together, and she was going half of the way and we chatted a bit, and then we got there, and then there was this sense of accomplishment. My uncle came and met me at the rickshaw. The rickshaw driver was like chatting to me as well. These like small like interactions, I feel like, are what make us feel connected to where we are. And when so many of us are living in a way where our food's delivered and often things are just kind of like left outside, and, you know, the person's in a hurry because they've got to do so many deliveries, and we're missing all these like little moments, but also in friendships that perhaps without so many things to glue us together, especially if people are working remotely at home on computers, that sense of being part of something can easily disappear. So the psychologist, Julianne Holt-Lunstad, she did 148 studies involving over 300,000 people. And she found that loneliness increases a person's risk of dying early by 30%, which is the similar amount to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I imagine that's also smoking 15 cigarettes a day, like in a less kind of social, joyful setting. And so we're at this place where, our sense of belonging and the way that we relate to each other, especially at a time when we're overwhelmed and overstimulated and living in these systems that actually move faster than human biology, that we're feeling out of touch. What I want to remind you here is that if you're feeling some of that, maybe some of you haven't recovered your full social lives from before COVID, or haven't found like that sense of like freedom and joy and aliveness again, that part of it is because we're living in a rhythm that is out of tune with our human nature, and things are changing very rapidly, and we're kind of catching up, and often the cost of the convenience comes at the price of belonging and real connection. And I feel that what really represents wealth at these times, according to other Harvard studies on adult development, the biggest predictor of health and happiness is the quality of our relationships. And that's how many relationships we have, and how deep they are, and how comfortable we are, and who we can call or spend time with or witness each other in like the darker cycles of life as well as the joyful ones. A study in psychosomatic medicine by Boyle also found that people with a clear sense of purpose can live for up to 7 years longer. And from the Blue Zones research, that it's people that live to 100 that have that. What they have in common is community, purpose, a natural movement, plant-forward diets that connect to the land, a spiritual life, and slow rhythms. And it's not this thing of supplements and wellness hacks, although of course these things can be helpful, but not when they don't come with the other things that we just really need as human beings. And of course, this also comes into nature connection and the research from forest bathing, for example, that spending 2 hours in nature lowers stress hormones and boosts immune cells. And stress is one of the biggest factors that there is on aging, and also depression and lots of the other illnesses and the hormone imbalances that can come with getting older. If you can have less stress in your life, more joy, more connection, then you can make yourself more immune from some of the harshness of these changes. And from the HeartMath group coherence studies, they show that when people meditate together, their heart rates and their rhythms synchronize and like stress hormones drop. So it's not just spending time together, but it's also what we do when we are together. And I'm sharing all this because I wonder, like, there's so many narratives now where everything becomes an individual cell. And it's like, take this supplement, do this exercise, do this hack, do this thing, do that. And it becomes actually just a big swirl of pressure to do more, and that you have to improve everything for yourself. And I know you all know this, everyone probably that's listening to this. Nothing I'm saying today is particularly out there or revolutionary, but it just feels like a timely reminder that it's collective and community care that we need, and that's such an important place to put our intention and our energy into, because these are the things that can make the biggest difference to your life. One of the easiest ways to do this, if you're feeling like you need more of this and it's not there in your social groups, is to find classes and groups that you can attend that are regular, whether it's your local choir or an exercise class or something that has that steady rhythm that you can go to in person, and that you can be with the same people and create those deepening relationships that are in that steady rhythm. Because, I know that the online stuff and the retreats and everything, they're amazing. And, I offer them. So I know that they do something, but I think that there's something that we all really need, which is just to be witnessed in our own lives and in the day-to-day of our own lives. And that's somewhat easier when the group already exists and people are always there. But also be the instigator in your group of friends, be the person that organizes the Sunday lunch and the walk and invites good people together, or people that you want to spend time with, because I feel like a lot of people are craving these kinds of invitations. And just in the way that not everyone feels comfortable to pick up the phone and call someone, not everyone feels comfortable to make those invitations. So if you do have that bandwidth within yourself and that longing, do it. And think about the people around you that may also be particularly isolated. Perhaps they're single parents, or they're caring for somebody that's unwell, or they are particularly stressed with their work. Reach out to them. And, the activities that you offer, like, they don't have to be expensive. It can be a walk and everyone brings a cup of tea and a flask and some fruit to share or something. But I feel like having those invitations, making those invitations, and making life a beautiful flurry of belonging and connection is something that we all have to put a little bit of effort towards. That's really what I want to talk about, is like the effort that's required to stay human in these times. The more and more we're going online and we're seeing so much AI in the words, and we're seeing AI in the pictures, and there's this overwhelm of selling and advertising, and like, you need this and you need this and you need this. And I've noticed at times that I can get really locked into that. And the irony is like, when I think about why did I join social media? Why am I on Instagram? It's to connect with you. Like, we put so much effort into the way that we do our social posts to share these episodes with you. And one of the things that I've noticed is that we might get loads of likes and engagement on a social post, but it doesn't necessarily translate to how many people then listen to that podcast. And the same with all of the posting. I'm checking myself at this moment in time and I'm thinking, wow, I started doing this to tell people about what I was doing and what I was offering. And now, like, is it taking more energy away from what I'm doing and what I'm offering, or is it giving more? And a lot of like my close friends and people that inspire me from around the world are on social media. And I love that we have these connections of looking at each other's stories and feeling each other's presence in that way. But is it enough? And one of the experiments that I've been doing is to keep inviting everyone on Instagram in my stories to come to the rhythm meditations, where we meditate for half an hour online together and say hi. And it's super gorgeous. Actually, I'm finding it really hard to get people to jump off that scrolling into something. I feel like this is a moment, like a breaking point in our humanity, of how intentional we are with all of these tools that we have and the way in which we live our life. And for me, when I come back to what committing to meditation and yoga and the beautiful rituals that I have brought into my life did for me compared to when I wasn't doing them, was that it brought in this intentionality, and it meant that my life was moving from the inside out rather than from the outside in. And it's a reclaiming of the inner world and our souls, and the preciousness and the force of our soul, and then like moving out from there into the world with intuition guiding us. And I do believe that the more that we get stuck in some of these loops of isolation and scrolling and disconnection and feeling lonely, that it can become really hard to really bring that intentionality out. And I've had situations, for some of you know that I've been caring for my mother through Parkinson's for 5 years. And for 3 years, it's been like really full on, just in terms of her needs and the systemic issues that we have around the way that these illnesses are treated in the care system and everything. And it has been a time, and I feel like we all go through these times in life where everything is difficult. We go through these seasons of winter even when we live a spiritual life, like it can't be high vibe all the time. That is life. That is karma. We have to go through things, and that there are cycles of beginnings and endings and rebirth and death that are continually part of us. And yet we can show up to it all intentionally. And I've been really experiencing that in the challenge of what I've been holding, of how to keep digging into that well of my own beauty and my own soul connection in order to show up again and again with love and with joy and with humor. And also to be wise enough to know, like, when to really allow myself to process the sadness and the grief and the anger connected with the situation in order to keep me like genuinely connected to the joy and the possibility and the presence of what I'm experiencing. And also then to bring in the multiplicity, the multidimensionalness that can bring more levity to any situation that's challenging, that allows me to see the different layers of the situation at the same time, and also allows me to be fully present for that situation, but then also expand into my own practice and my own relationships and my own work and offerings, and to do it in a way that is generative for myself and that isn't just leading me into like more kind of burnout and pushing. And for me, that's been a really interesting experience. And it definitely hasn't been like that the whole time. I feel like I felt quite crushed at various points. But now I've somehow worked out in myself how to be in it with presence and also an expansion and a joy and a possibility, and that all of these things can exist together. And that no matter what's happening in life, there's always this window of possibility. There's always like the cheeky question of like, okay, like how good can this get? How good can this day be? How beautiful can this be? Despite and with all of the understanding of the suffering in my own life, in the lives of those that I love, and in the world, and the horrific situations that are there in the world. And I find that when I'm able to connect to that inner life force and that regenerative state within myself, then I'm able to be more present for all of that, and for the grief as well as the joy, because both require presence. Otherwise, we just numb out. And the numbing out is when it's all like, yeah, I mean, it's understandable, but then it's off the table. I find like when I reflect on like creativity and the creative process, that there's always this kind of moving through something that's challenging to kind of get to that creating something that's really beautiful and powerful. And so we have to push ourselves in a way to still expand and to bring that beautiful discipline that we learn through a spiritual practice. There is so much about the current spiritual world that's so messy and so chasing of peak experiences. But I know that real magic comes from keeping that discipline, which gives us that structure from which all the creativity and the possibility can flow. And this is why, for me, I love yoga. I mean, I hate the modern yoga world and the Instagram yoga and the YouTube yoga and the way that it's become what it's become. But actually to go back to the concepts and yoga itself, meaning union, that's about connection. It's not about performance. It's a union within yourself, your mind, body, and soul, of your fear and your possibility, of your movement and your breath. And then that union that you're rooting into and establishing within, you bring that into every connection, into every experience, into every relationship. In yoga, there's so much focus on the breath, on prana, which means life force, and ayama means expansion. So pranayama is bringing that coherence into your body, expanding your life force through breathing, which we do anyway, but making that breathing really conscientious and intentional. And this existed in the ancient wisdoms long before anyone talked about regulating mental and emotional states or vagus nerve science or any of this stuff that also can be quite controlling, because if we're always regulated, it can make us really disconnected from how we truly feel and the processes that we have to go through in order to release and expand and experience life fully. There's another aspect that comes in Ayurveda of dinacharya, which is about daily rhythm, waking up with the sun, eating at regular times, sleeping early, like living in connection with the circadian rhythms wherever you are. And I feel like with anything, it's also about being able to have a late night or sleep in without any kind of guilt or drama, especially if it's because of connection with others and community and taking part in things that kind of negates the need for that rhythm. But having basic rhythms allow us to feel that connection and to bring ourselves into a natural human rhythm that a lot of the fastness of the modern world is taking us out of. So we can still enjoy the fastness of the modern world, but again, it's like rooting into ourselves and then meeting that from within out rather than outwards in. And that brings us to the 5 elements and being really aware of the elements within ourselves and then how that connects to the elements outside of us. And again, being connected to Dharma, us as a purpose, alignment. That alignment does not mean the easiest, most joyful, fun thing all the time, but it is the thing that is like where you're being asked to move and grow and show up with that full presence and then committing to that. Because whatever it is that you're doing in your life, something really, really shifts if you do it with presence and with a fullness. Like if you're in a relationship, be there in that relationship with that person. If you're doing the washing up, like revel in the gratitude that you've got clean, warm water and then you're going to make these plates really shiny and beautiful for you and your loved ones to eat off. Bringing that gentle intentionality, gratitude, presence into everything that you do completely shifts your experience of life. And how often is it easy to get swept up in like the busyness, the fullness, the like, you know, and then to remember to come back to that steadiness and to bring that sense of aliveness and presence into everything that you do. And I feel this is so important in relationships, especially when conflicts come up, to be able to offer yourself to sit with that person and connect around like what's gone wrong and then to be able to forgive. And a pattern that I've been noticing more and more, and maybe it's not a more and more thing, but some of the things that have gone like out of balance in the last few years have brought about more of a certain kind of conflict. With that certain kind of conflict, a pulling away from just approaching things with honesty and truth and without judgment and just allowing each other to fully exist. And I've experienced this in my own life where there are people that conflicts have arisen that have been so out of balance, like full of projection, but then like a lack of willingness just to sit down and have the conversation around it and move the energy through. And I know that this is one of those things where quite often, like how we feel when we're really wound up about something if we just give it a bit of space, we realize that it doesn't really matter. And that maybe actually this thing that we thought and we felt it was so like, something so wrong with this relationship that actually with some time and space, that feeling goes. Often it's a feeling within ourselves, something within ourselves that we're battling with, and it comes out in that dynamic. And of course, sometimes, it is because there's like difficulties within the relationship. But of course, being able to talk about it and connect with it and seeing this as part of our spiritual process to not be creating more and unnecessary pain and separation in the world, especially when we have a longing for the opposite, when that longing is for connection and for community and for belonging. A really simple way of approaching this and any of it, whether it's about supplements or relationships or things that you want to attend, is like checking in, like, does this move me towards wholeness? Am I able to show up to this from a place of like my own truth and beauty, not from a place of performance or trying to prove something or a pressure to be better, but actually just like to enjoy, to connect, to be human together, to be seen in the full spectrum of our humanity. I personally am not anti-AI. I mean, I feel like it's quite terrifying in some ways, and it's also going to be implemented and integrated into everything in not a very long period of time. So we have to understand a relationship with it. But there's more and more people that are talking to AI instead of talking to each other. Actually, if you train your AI to show you your blind spots, to not lie to you, to kind of bring facts and measured ways of looking at things, that can be really, really helpful. But it also can't replace what talking to a friend or a neighbor or another human and being in that presence, being in that stillness, being in that witnessing can bring. I know that like when I have conversations with AI about things, like something happens, but I don't feel it so somatically. I don't feel its impacts on every cell of my being. I don't feel it speak to all aspects of me. It seems to just like speak to like a sort of part of me that, and it doesn't get fully integrated. And so the more that we use these tools, it's really good to check in with our bodies and our energy bodies. Like, how is this making me feel? How do I feel when I use this tool in this way? How do I feel when I spend loads of time on Instagram? How do I feel when I spend time off it? How do I feel when I put certain boundaries around it? One of the things that I've done recently is make my phone black and white in the mornings and the evenings. So there's only a period during the day where I can see all the color and get all the dopamine. And it actually makes being on my phone like completely different when it's in black and white, and makes me much better at just going in and doing the thing that I need to do and then coming out. So there's all these clever little ways that we can find a new relationship with these tools so that they enable us to be better at being human. What I'm speaking to here in this episode, it's a kind of nuanced thing because on one hand, I'm saying like, be really intentional. And on the other hand, I'm saying like, don't always be trying to improve yourself. And that is a nuance. And the thing that makes it different is coming at it from this like inner energy versus an external energy, and coming at it from a space of knowing that you're enough, knowing that you are loved exactly as you are. It doesn't matter like if you do this or not, but also knowing that you can bring more of that beautiful soul energy that you have into this world, and cultivating ways of being that support you in doing more of that. And that comes from this place, like it's like a resting back place. It's an empowered place. It feels just drenched in possibility and vision and spaciousness and openness. And that is a very different energy from feeling like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. And like, if I don't do these things, then like, and that which can feel quite contracted as an energy and pressured, and that you need to be something else that you're not. And I feel like that is the dance of being a human. It's like, how do we cultivate ways of being for ourselves and each other that bring more goodness and joy and presence into who we are in the way that we are? And as this is our last episode in the series, and we'll have a little break after this, I felt like it might be helpful to summarize what I'm sharing here into 10 principles of how to live with beauty and how to bring this joy and soul energy and intuition and creativity into life. And so the top 10 that made it into this list is: 1, live in rhythm. Find the rhythms that support you in who you are, that also connect to the rhythms of time. And Ayurveda has some really interesting frameworks of like the energies at different times of day and how you can utilize and cultivate yourself within those so that you're not going against the grain. And also, different types of neurodivergence have different patterns. And some people are morning people, some people are evening people, night people. Finding what works for you, like your rhythm, and living in that rhythm is, yeah, super powerful. Secondly, nourish meaningful relationships. And I feel like this is probably the most important thing that we can do with our lives, to really, really cultivate and tend to the relationships that mean something to us, and to show up for people and to let people know that we're thinking of them, to make invitations, to say yes to things, to make time for people, to repair when something has come out of balance somehow. Thirdly, to tend to our digestion, which we didn't really talk about here, but what we eat and how much water we drink, trying to eat as much whole food as possible, and really supporting our guts, because our guts have such an important aspect on how we feel, as does our hydration, that it's one of those basic things. Yes, you can take this medication, that supplement and everything, but are you eating well? Are you drinking enough water? And most of us are dehydrated. And it's one of those things, if you're feeling crappy, if you're feeling tired, like, just notice how much water you've drank and see if you can drink more. Fourthly, it's to move your body and to find the joyful, natural ways for this, whether it's long walks or yoga or bouncing on a rebounder or qigong, running, like whatever it is, but to find those ways of moving your body. Your body loves to move. 5, spending time in nature. And if you're in the city, that can be the sky. That can be, there's always trees around, but just connecting to that so we don't just get consumed by the human world, the concrete, the tech, but actually we remember that we're part of this beautiful, beautiful nature. And number 6 is to honor emotions as part of life, that we all have a range of emotions, and not to be ashamed of some of the darker, expressive ones, to find safe places and people that you can express those parts of yourselves with, to let go of trying to be high vibe all the time, but also to be connected with gratitude no matter what you're feeling. And that helps for those emotions to move through in their own natural cycles and rhythms. And number 7 is to create and to share rituals. And these rituals can be really simple ones, like dancing to 3 songs a day with everyone in your household. It can be inviting people around for like a beautiful meal. It can be you waking up and doing something beautiful for yourself in the morning, sitting and meditating, offering some gratitude, putting beautiful adaptogens into your morning drink, but doing it in a way that's like honoring the beauty and the joy of being here and being alive. 8th is living with purpose, bringing a sense of purpose to yourself, to your life, to everything that you do. And that purpose doesn't have to be grand, doesn't have to be like a big thing that affects everyone, but it is something that really moves you forward, that you understand what your gifts are and what you're here to offer. Number 9 is to rest deeply, to allow yourself to rest, and not like always resting, like zoning out with Netflix, but to really rest, to let your body recuperate and rest and sleep and have time when you're not doing anything. Have time when you're not doing anything, where you allow yourself to get bored, where you welcome in the creativity that can come from being bored. And the final one I want to share is to let yourself belong. Because of negative experiences that we've had around belonging, perhaps bullying or unkindness or being excluded or being different, that often we can want to belong and we can put up a wall to that belonging. And so it's actually an art to let yourself belong, to invite in that belonging and to say yes when it shows up and to create opportunities for it. So let's let go of like hacking ourselves, but actually just return and remember these very simple, ancient human ways of being and honor them not as luxuries, but as foundations of a meaningful, long and human life. And I know that most of you know everything that I've just said, and that nothing I'm saying here is revolutionary, but it's a reminder. It's a reminder that as the world changes rapidly, that we just have to keep rooting into and remembering the power and the beauty that each one of us has as a human, as exactly who we are. And remember what happens when we show up in our lives with that remembrance embodied, when we show up in our lives really able to give from that place our presence. So if you have got lost along the way, maybe if you were doing these things and then life's got busy or hectic or difficult and you've forgotten, let this be a remembrance. And if some of this is new, then how beautiful to hear and connect to these ways of being, because we make it really complicated, but I don't think it is. And so that's it, the end of a series. We'll see you again in the new year. There are ways that I shared in the intro and that you can find on our website and newsletter of how you can connect in these months that will be offline with the podcast. The steadiest is to come to the beautiful rhythm meditations. But I'll also be offering beautiful leadership mentoring for those that want to work one-to-one and go a bit deeper into shifting some of the unconscious patterns that actually make this simple list of things difficult. And I'll also be offering rounds of Reclaim Your Intuition and this beautiful voice workshop that I've been crafting around sharing your voice confidently and honestly and with joy and worth. For those of you that are also interested in the goddesses and the Hindu tantric practices that are part of my own practice that I also share, I will have another Radiant Field where we'll be delving into Lakshmi in the new year, and also we'll be hosting groups for spring and autumn Navaratri where we are with the energies of Durga. And so please do come and weave in these ways. Pretty much everything is live, even if it's online, we're there together. And there's a few things such as Reclaim Your Intuition that you can work through yourself. But I love being with you all in this way. And it's not an alternative to these things that we've been sharing about, but it is something that can support bringing in more of these energies into into your life, no matter what your circumstances. And one of the reasons that I continue to offer online is because I know, as somebody with a lot of responsibilities, it's not always easy to get out the house and get to things. And that's one of the ways that we can utilize the beauty of an online space in order to connect more and to connect, whilst you've got sleeping kids next to you, or other people that you're caring for, other responsibilities, or lack of ability to travel for whatever reason. And so that's my commitment, to keep offering these spaces. Also because they're two-way, and obviously with the podcast, you're here, you're listening, but we're not in this live moment together. So if you are listening, and if you have enjoyed this or anything from this series, please do get in touch with us and share, because we love to know. We love to make that connection with you. And that definitely keeps us inspired and motivated to keep making this. And I have some really beautiful guests planned for 2026, as well as some live events and other ways of connecting. And so wishing you a really beautiful time over this break. And we will be back in the late winter, early spring, February, March, April, sometime. Stay with our newsletter to find out the exact dates. And until then, really do take care and bring as much as you can of these 10 principles into your life and inspire those around you. That's how we learn. That's how we grow together. That's how we create spaces of belonging and nurturing and truth, spaces where we can reflect each other's beauty and give each other permission to anchor more of that beauty into this life and into this world. Thank you so much to each one of you. It's, really beautiful to spend this time with you. Thank you for listening. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has sparked something in you. Join our membership community, where we go deeper through live gatherings, courses, and retreats with wonderful people from all over the world. Your support is what allows me to keep creating this work ad-free. As always, you can find links to everything we mentioned in this episode, download our book, join our experiences, and discover so much more over on allthatweare.org. Subscribe, share, and leave us a review. This is how we grow. All that we are becoming, and all that is possible.